Hi Saida, how are you? I'm here to do your reading that you requested, your Celtic Cross reading regarding your relationship situation. I already shuffled the cards and cut just to save a little time in the video, and I used for a significator, since you told me your birthday was in March, I used the Queen of Cups because you are a Pisces, and the Queen of Cups represents water sign females, generally speaking. So, of course, that stays out of the deck and in the center. Okay, so your overall situation is the moon. And again, I'm clearly using the Rider-Waite deck as you requested. Um, the obstacle or the conflict is the Eight of Wands. Crowning you is the Page of Pentacles. The root is the devil. Leaving the situation or the past is the Ten of Pentacles. And entering the situation or the immediate future is the Knight of Cups. How you see yourself is as the King of Swords, or your perspective on the situation is the King of Swords. Your environmental factors or outside influences are the Four of Pentacles. Sorry, I almost said discs. The Four of Pentacles. Your hopes and fears are the Star, or characterized by the Star. And I apologize if you can't see everything on this video. I do have a built-in camera, and so it can be a little troublesome sometimes. I will do my best to make sure you can see everything. And the overall result is the Ace of Pentacles. Okay. Beneath everything is the Nine of Pentacles. Okay. Your situation does not seem to be a particularly simple one. I think that there are a lot of complications to your situation with this man that you have asked about. And I assume, based on your email, I believe you said you were in a relationship of some kind with him, and basically you would like to know why it didn't work out, and if there's anything you can do to make it work, and where it's going, are basically the questions you asked. And I do think that overall everything is very cloudy, and is very doubtful. I don't think you have a good idea of what this man is really thinking, or exactly what he feels. And perhaps you yourself are sort of unsure about how you feel. And there's a big emphasis on materiality here throughout the reading, and it's not just because I see the devil in the root of the problem, but you have Earth sort of encapsulating the situation, and you have a little bit of water, not very much air, and not very much fire. Your dominant element is actually Earth, which is very interesting to me, given the fact that this was an emotional related or love related question and situation. Now the overall situation is water related, being the moon, but the moon with its animals in the picture, it has this kind of primitive quality to it, that is associated with almost an earthiness, and it almost adds to the earthy element of your relationship with this man. And I almost feel like your relationship with them is or was more about security than anything else, and not necessarily about a real bond that you have with this person. And again, I say that because of all the earth, and to be completely honest with you, it does seem more sexually oriented, um, rather than necessarily anything that goes beyond that. And it does seem like more of in some ways, and I could be wrong, but almost like a practical relationship. At least I get the sense that that's how he feels about it. And I think that you being a Pisces, you're coming at this from a very Pisces way. And I think you want to read into his attachments, whatever they have been. Um, you want to read them as meaning something a little bit more. And, I realize that you want to be careful. There's some there is an aspect of this that I don't particularly like, just from the devil, and I don't usually read the devil as an overtly negative card. I mean, it's hard not to in Waite's deck. I mean, as you know, the picture is so bleak and not particularly cheery, but I get the sense that you are just having a really hard time letting go, and you want things to happen in regards to this very quickly. The Eight of Wands as your problem card, as sort of the crux of the issue here. The Eight of Wands is basically just about speed, usually, and about things happening very smoothly and very quickly in a single direction. And I think the issue here is that you're both going in seemingly different directions. And of course, as you say in your email, basically, you either broke up with him or vice versa, or you're separated, something like that. And I think you're very attached to the idea of trying to make it work. Obviously that's your question. But not necessarily because this relationship had a benefit to you other than, I almost want to say, a financial one. I don't know if this person was particularly helpful financially to you. I don't know exactly the length of your relationship. I would say this was a relationship that probably went on for a fairly long time. You may have even lived together. And that's based on the Ten of Pentacles here. And the security and consistency that represents is now gone for you. And of course it's difficult to let go of that. Not only is it financially reliable, but it was also, to be blunt, sexually reliable as well. And to suddenly have that stripped away does leave you feeling a bit defenseless, I suppose, but like there is sort of like, I don't know how able to make decisions you feel you are lately. You see yourself as the King of Swords in regards to the situation, and I tend to see the King of Swords as someone who has a lot of different ideas but doesn't necessarily implement them. He's sort of lost in his own thoughts, and I think it's why his sword is tilted to the side, because he's sort of not exactly motivated with his thoughts, in the sense that he doesn't necessarily want to make them into a reality. And so I think in general you're doubting your decisions in this, and perhaps you feel that you are to blame for some of it. The other thing could be, and I just got this, and this is just based on the Nine of Pentacles here. I don't know if he left you for someone else, and if that's something that is a problem. And I get that between the Nine of Pentacles and the Devil. The Devil can represent your personal attachments to this relationship, but on another level, it can represent as the basis of this problem. It can represent his carnal desires, basically, for someone else, and I can understand that that is another cause for all this doubt that you are experiencing. Perhaps being concerned about him lying to you about the situation, lying in what he was saying about his feelings towards you, anything of that nature. And I do feel like he has betrayed your trust quite a bit. And yet, you are still optimistic about this somehow. You still think that there might be an opportunity for this to work. And I think part of that is because, again, you feel like there might be some decisions that you could personally make in order to perhaps remedy all this. And I don't know if there is. Let me draw another card since you were mostly concerned with the future and where this is going. I'd like to draw another card for the Knight of Cups, because I sort of want to say that the Knight of Cups is perhaps a representation of him, but that's only astrologically. I don't necessarily get that intuitively. Excuse me. Okay. I think this represents you. And I think that in the immediate future, you are trying to make reconciliation happen with this man. And you are trying to revive your connection with him somehow, or you're going to try to. And I don't think it is going to be all that successful, with the Hermit also operating here and turning backwards. I think that ultimately, or for the time being rather, in regards to your relationship with this man, whatever efforts you put into it, no matter how fresh they may be, I don't think they're going to be that successful. I think ultimately it is not going to necessarily work out, and I think that you're going to start to turn back inwards on yourself. And my advice to you then is to not let this situation fester inside you in any way. Now, your advice is interesting, and I haven't talked about this yet. The Page of Pentacles, what the best possible outcome of this situation is the Page of Pentacles. And in some ways I see this as the opposite of the Ten of Pentacles. Even though sephirotically or Kabbalistically they occupy the same spot on the Sephiroth, they both represent almost very different things, and the Page is really new, whereas the Ten of Pentacles is established and is old in a way. And so I think that it's telling you that the best possible thing for you to do right now is to rebuild, I think, to rebuild your sense of security without this man. I think, since a big aspect of this reading is in some ways security, in your personal security having been thwarted by his actions and subversion, I think it's saying that one of the best things for you to do is to realize um, that you need to sort of rebuild that yourself, and that, and especially through, I want to say, your career, financially rebuild yourself. I don't know if you have been considering going back to school of some kind or receiving some kind of new training, because the Page of Pentacles sometimes represents that, receiving training or education in some kind of new field. It's sort of an apprenticeship card. Um, I don't know if that's something that you have possibly been considering. It's saying that ideas like that are good for you right now, that those are things that you should perhaps be pursuing. I think whatever the case may be, the cleansing of your relationship with this man, the end of it, has freed up some of your time and some of your independence again, and it might just be time for you to embrace more of that independence. That is the best possible thing for you to do, to take it into your own hands, and to not be dependent on this other guy. He seems like a very selfish person. He doesn't seem to be the type who is very thoughtful of others. And you, on the other hand, are very much more connected with people. Being a Pisces, I would say that you have much more empathy for the average person. You have much more sympathy for people that are in need. You have a more soft demeanor to you. And this guy seems to be very focused on the non-emotional aspects of this. And it seems like what he wants is simply pleasurable and selfish self-satisfaction. He is not, in some ways, he's not lovable because he's so selfish. He is not opening himself up to the love or feelings that you are willing to really give him, or have tried to give him in the past. And I don't think that he is going to be able to reciprocate those because he's so wrapped up in himself, to be perfectly honest with you. And I think he's sort of thinking that he just needs to get whatever he can get. And so I would advise you to not let him mislead you, ultimately. I don't see him necessarily making much of an effort to come back into your life. If your efforts are eventually successful in, as here we talked about how you're going to, in the immediate future, try to make amends or try to bring him back in a way. If he ever finally agrees to that, I don't think he's going to want anything all that profound, which is what you are looking for more. I think that you would want that more from a relationship-based thing, perhaps like you used to have, in the past. I mean, either way, there used to be a kind of security surrounding this guy, and again, I don't know if you were necessarily in a real relationship with him, but there was at least a kind of friendship there, a kind of trust, I think. Those are the vibes I get. And of course, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Um, I do think that, it might be good for you in some ways to just don't keep your hopes up regarding him. This is not, part of you wants to believe that anything is possible, or a big part of you wants to believe that anything is possible in this relationship, and that there is room to grow in it. And I don't think there is. So in some ways, I think another piece of advice for you is to convert that optimism and hope into rebuilding yourself, or taking steps to building yourself in the first place. I think um, your overall outcome is the Ace of Pentacles. And the Ace of Pentacles is very similar to the Page of Pentacles. And so I think in the long run, you are going to take this advice and you're going to do what it is that is being suggested to you by your higher self, or your personal guides. I mean, whatever. I don't know what denomination you consider yourself. What if you have a religious practice of any kind, and of course that's you don't have to tell me, but whatever you want to call it, the advice from the higher ups, as we say. The advice to you, again, being the Page of Pentacles, being starting over in some ways, and with an emphasis on reconstruction and rebuilding of your resources, and perhaps of your sense of security, independently. And the Ace of Pentacles does seem to me to say that endeavor is going to go really well. It doesn't necessarily mean that this man is going to come back to you in any way. Just to draw two more about your final outcome. I do think someone else is going to come along. I do think that someone who is a little bit more your type is likely to come along. And the two cards I drew for that, I'm sorry I didn't show you, are the Knight of Wands and the Six of Cups. And I would say, the Knight of Wands being very different from the Libra guy that we've been talking about, who's sort of basically represented by this and this. He's represented actually by a lot of Capricorn, which signifies, in this case, independence, stubbornness, and carnal stuff, physical desire. I do think that the Knight of Wands is quite different from that, and the Knight of Wands is generally a more outgoing, a more thoughtful person. About he's much more empathetic, not quite in the way that you are, but still has a better sense of like right and wrong in this case. He could possibly be well traveled. I don't know if this is someone who is almost going to be like a visitor, or someone who's come from far away. I don't know. Someone who has been distant for a while, who's been out in the world. And I get the sense that they are going to ultimately come into your life. And I don't know if if this is someone that you will have already met in the past who will be coming back, or someone totally new. I tend to think that it's someone totally new. It could be someone even who's like on vacation or something. I don't know. Someone who is in the process of adventuring in some way. And it's saying that that relationship will be much sweeter, be more innocent, and be more loving in the way that I think you want. and it won't be quite as carnal, and physical as this current guy that we've been talking about has been. Again, this Libra man that your question has been about is very physically oriented, and possibly might even have a sexual addiction or something like that. He is very he's not afraid to cheat. He's not afraid to lie about cheating. He's not afraid to be promiscuous and things like that. And there is little to no reciprocity in his capacity for loving, forgiving sexually. It's sort of always all about him. And this guy who your overall outcome seems to be talking about is not like that. He is going to be much more considerate of you. I think he's going to be more generous to you in a way, particularly with his emotions. And it's going to be sort of sweet and innocent, is the vibe that I get from that. Which is a big contradiction, which is quite contrary to what you are going through at the moment. Now, I know you asked about timeline. I sort of feel like this overall outcome is dependent on when you decide to take this advice, the Page of Pentacles stuff that we've talked about. I will draw one more card for the overall outcome just to try to get a sense of chronology for it. And the card, I'm not going to think about it divinatorily, but I'm going to ask that we draw one more card just to think about a time area, zodiacally, and hopefully we will get a card that has a time to it, or a date to it. All right, we have the Eight of Pentacles, and so that being a card having to do with Virgo, I would say probably maybe end of August or so. This is sort of not something that will happen until your overall result, that is something that won't necessarily happen until, I would say, end of the summer, beginning of the fall. Okay, and that's again based on the Eight of Pentacles that we drew as a timing question card. Not to necessarily add something to it divination wise. Of course, I don't usually read for timing, specific timing, but that's again the timeline for the Eight of Pentacles being a Virgo card. And you know what? There is in general a decent amount of Virgo here. You also have Virgo in the Ten of Pentacles. You also have the Hermit. The Eight of Pentacles is another Hermit card, another Virgo card, as I said. The Hermit also being in your future, it seems to be pretty indicative that that Virgo is strong here, and chronologically speaking, it might have an influence. So again, end of summer, early fall, and I think that this is all going to work out for you. I think that this is meant to be a learning experience for you to rebuild yourself independently and individually. It's okay to be wary of the man that we've been talking about throughout this reading, not the one who is coming in the overall outcome, again, just to differentiate the Libra male that our question was about in the beginning. I don't trust him. I don't suggest that you trust him. I don't suggest that you invest much emotionally in him. No matter what he says or does, I don't think that he is the right match for you at any time. Okay? So I do hope that this helps with some of your indecision about where to go with this. I hope that this clarifies some of the doubt that seems to have been surrounding this and the uncertainty about all this. Again, he was probably seeing someone else, or is seeing someone else now, probably might have even been cheating on you or in some way if you were in a relationship with him. Again, I don't really know. I don't remember from your email, and I don't want to pull it back up. Uh, okay. If you have any questions, thank you very much, of course, for your request, your reading request. It was a pleasure reading for you. I always love to read for new people, and I do hope that you found it to be accurate, helpful, informative, all that stuff. Any feedback you have, I would appreciate. And again, this will remain unlisted, so you will not be able to access it from my channel. I will, of course, email you the direct link to this video, and only people who have the link, which is going to be you and me, only we will be able to access the video. Okay? And as you said, hopefully that'll be okay for you. All right, thank you, Saida, and I hope everything works out for you. I wish you only the best. Thank you again, and take care. Bye.